The gods, and I'm gonna just say the word gods because I don't want to say anything else, so to avoid criticism, I'm just gonna say the gods. So the gods, with their master plan of constructing soul harvesting facility enclosure known as the firmament, which means everything that lives under the electromagnetic dome. So they created for themselves, the gods created for themselves a carbon-based slave race, which is, I guess, what's the meaning of the words in Genesis when it says, let's create man in our image. That could also be a meaning because carbon-based life is inferior and made in the image of the creators of the gods. Then we have once we start studying, there's lots of things that you have to study. You have to put into consideration the moon, which is the map of the world, the dome, the history, Tartaria, which is not Tartaria, it's the Millennium Kingdom, but also the stories of Jesus Christ are mixed with other stories as well, then the calendars, then the history events. So altogether, once you obliterate your mind with so much information, because information is stressful, there's this calendar which is very hated in official documents, in documents of our official history, which states the calendar that the world has 7,529 years. Right, and this is approaching the Book of Enoch. Between this and the Book of Enoch, there's an 80%, 90% the same type of information. So 7,500 years, 7,500 years, and this is according to what we understand as the old calendar. Let's call it the old calendar because if I say names, then people are going to start pointing the finger and hating and stuff. But if I just say the old calendar, which is hated in the current official timeline, then I guess people can associate with me on that matter. So according to the old calendar, exactly 7,529 years ago, the construction of the firmament began, of the dome, which means that it began over 5,000 years before year zero. Eventually, after 5,508 years, so 5,500 years, the job was done, and the lands in the diameter of 400,000 kilometers, they cleared all of the giant silicon trees. So all of as you can see, and I have all these photos I've made in the videos in the past, and I still have the photos. The mountains, we know now that they're cut silicon trees. It's no secret. The earth is full of cut silicon trees. Now, some of them are mesas, some of them are just totally obliterated. So if this is true, according to your calendar, then it took them slightly over 5,500 years to the gods to clear 400,000 kilometers diameter. Remember, our Earth, as we are told, has 40,000 kilometers, so it's 10 times that. 400,000 kilometers of the flat Earth cleared of all giant silicon trees. Then with that silicon, which they, even in the Book of Enoch it says, and in the other books it says, now the angels shall labor at the trees, which means cut and destroy the trees. So use the silicon to build silicon cities and to build the electromagnetic torus firmament, which is the movement of the torus electromagnetic field, which is activated, covering and sealing off an area of 400,000 kilometers in diameter. 400,000 kilometers in diameter on the flat surface of the earth. So nothing can escape and no one can come in from the outside except for the gods themselves through plasma Stargate portals, which is no secret now. Now we know about plasma Stargate portals and also the things that allow you to time travel and to go from one dimension to another. Humans, as we know of them, as we know of human beings, they came much later. It's stated according to the old calendar that human beings, as we know of them, were created when construction of the firmament was finished. But I don't know when the construction was finished, if that was finished 2,000 years ago or not. And I'm not even sure if this is real or not. But we do know that the firmament did not exist at some point in time, and it has a certain age, the firmament. So it's not like it's not something that has existed forever, because the trees existed before the firmament. That's brutally insane in my mind. It obliterates me. Now, the pyramids, according to what I can understand, were nuclear power plants. As you know, the world is full of pyramids. Nuclear power plants were built to provide energy for this project of building the firmament. These nuclear power plants are known today as the pyramids, and the pyramids were built for the manufacturing of chemicals needed for silicon purification. Because once the silicon was taken from the trees, from the silicon trees, they had to be purified. So the chemical plants were right underneath the pyramids in a long enclosed corridors, from where the final products of manufactured chemicals were loaded onto flying craft, which are the Vimanas and what we call the electromagnetic UFOs today, and delivered at silicon purification plants. When everything was ready to start with the job, the giant silicon trees as tall as 120 kilometers, the giant silicon trees that we see now today as mountains, which are cut, they had 120 kilometers. Once everything was in place to start the job, they were being gradually cut down and processed to extract pure silicon. The surface of the earth was mined and dug out 15 kilometers deep as well. So on the surface and in the depths, the deepest point of mining is the almost 11 kilometers known as the Mariana Trench, which is specifically 10,999 meters, so almost 11 kilometers or 12 kilometers, depends on how the data is, which is located at the Ring of Fire, which is the biggest silicon mining quarry under Pacific Ocean. This was the area where most of the mining took place, because approximately 75% of volcanoes on Earth are in the Ring of Fire in the Pacific Ocean, and about 70 to 80% of the mining took place in the ocean's floor. That's why the ocean floor looks brutally more mined than the surface of the continents. Some of the chemicals which were needed for silicon purifications were carbon, hydrochloric acid, hydrogen fluoride, sulfuric acid, and water, of course, amongst others. In the silicon-based habitat outside of the firmament, there is no water. So like I said, so this place where we live is just part of a bigger diameter, which is 400,000 kilometers according to the calendar. And outside of this firmament of 4,100 kilometers, there is no water. It's only suspended oxygen particles in the atmosphere, because when silicon is placed into water, it gradually dissolves and decomposes. So in the silicon-based habitat, which is outside of the dome, the firmament, there is no water. When pure silicon was extracted from the silicon dioxide, apart from all of these chemicals, they needed lots and lots of water. Sodium chloride and many other chemicals present in the oceans today are the byproducts from the silicon purification process. And lots of irradiation was left behind after the whole construction of the dome and the destruction of the silicon trees. That's why even today there's so many places in the world where there's still radiation active, and of course the part of the dome is radiation as well. And even NASA has said this, and the space agency, they always say there's too much radiation up there. Even Vibes of Cosmos speaks about the radiation in his books. And now we know what volcanoes are, but I'll just leave it there for now. Well, we know that volcanoes are, because of the process of earth mining and silicon purification, a lot of the toxic byproducts were left behind. Majority of them were buried in a mountain-high piles, we now known as volcanoes. So they're mountain piles of toxic waste of the chemical mining. And many other small quantities of toxic waste were laying around on the surface of the ground. The gods did flood the grounds with the greatest tsunami ever. Maybe that's the whole thing with the flood as well. They washed up with water even the tallest mountain. Today, when we have chemical reactions reaches their critical point, because there's still the leftovers left in certain places, and they're active chemicals, when those chemicals reach the critical point, we have volcano eruptions. And now we know that what the stories are about Asgard, Midgard, and the underground, all to do with the electromagnetic torus shield firmament, which covers an area of 400,000 kilometers in diameter. This is mind-blowing and mind-blasting, but it makes now pure sense once we understand about the trees, the mountains. And I guess that the whole thing with the trees comes before this whole Tartarian Millennium Kingdom of the old world buildings, because we see the trees in the world today, the giant mountains, which is too much for people to accept because they get into a super depression mode. But yeah, that's I'm just trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together according to what we have from the reality of the real world and everything else.